Hello Internet Land, this is the Mother Brain and I'm back once again on a very hot summer day, which means we gotta cover another hot summer movie. And this day we're going to be covering Fast and Furious 6, the sixth and not quite the final installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Now, I'm not going to get into the previous films too much because, in my opinion personally, the Fast and the Furious films have never been about great storytelling. They've been more about what you see in all the advertisements. Fast cars, attractive people, and lots of action and entertainment to satisfy your needs on a hot summer day. This is no exception, but I did find it very fun, and just like another summer movie that I covered last year, The Expendables 2, this is a film that basically is depending on you to check your brain at the door as soon as you go into the theater. If you've seen Fast and Furious 5, aka Fast 5, you know that the characters of Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor and their whole crew had covered a heist in Rio and have all pretty much scattered in different parts of the world trying to get on with their lives as fugitives on the run. So you have Brian O'Connor, now he's with Dominic's sister Mia and they're living in Spain with a baby, and Dominic is trying to get on with his life until an incident in London takes place with an ex-British officer named Owen Shaw, played by Luke Evans. He's pulling off his own share of heists around the world with his own crew, and in comes the character of Agent Hobbs, played by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And where in the previous film he was chasing after Dominic's gang, in this case now he's going after Owen Shaw and needs to rely on Dominic's team to go after him. But to entice him into that plan, he reveals information that Dominic just discovers, that his previous girlfriend, Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez from the first film, is not dead. And in fact, she had survived the events that took place in the fourth film and is now running with Shaw's gang and pulling off these heists. Therefore, Dominic gets the gang back together, teams up with Hobbs to try to take down the gang led by Owen Shaw. Now, this is definitely, as I said before, not a great premise. If the previous film was a lot like The Italian Job meets The Fugitive, this movie's pretty much Mission Impossible. These guys are out on a mission. It's not a revenge mission, but more like a rescue mission, as Dominic is trying to get back to Letty, who has apparently lost her memory since the last movie and does not remember Dominic or any of the other characters, but she's also conflicted in the sense that she's really not totally tied with Shaw's gang. And therefore Dominic is trying to steer her into the light in order to show she had a life long before all these events that have taken place in the film. There's really not much I could say about the acting. It is what it is. The dialogue is not the greatest, but for many fans it is about the family dynamic, and obviously you could see that for Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Jordiana, Brewster, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Ludicrous, and the rest of the gang, who I'm not even going to mention right now because there's so many of them. There is chemistry, everybody works great, everybody has their moments, and you can see that they love what they're doing. It doesn't feel like a paycheck. It feels like they've grown into these characters. Of all the actors, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, it pretty much is his show. Where in the last movie he was chasing after Vin Diesel's gang, now he's siding with Vin Diesel, and they get their moments where they basically tag team up against the bad guys. And he does get a lot of great moments in the action sequences, not to mention he gets a lot of funny moments too. Particularly one scene in London where he and Ludicrous are trying to get a hold of some exotic cars, and the courier running this auction apparently sees them as just a bunch of colored hoods, and when he realizes they got some dough to take care of the business, then they get their payback in a very hilarious way. So that kind of gave me a little smile when I saw it in the theater. You can't go wrong with the action sequences in this movie. You got a lot of great car chases, and what you see in the trailers is pretty damn impressive in the final film, with the chase with the tank midway through the movie, the airplane hangar scene which of course was even mind-blowing and in real large scope compared to the other movies. You could tell it's grown from being a series about street racing and becoming more of a large-size summer blockbuster of an action movie. You know, it just shows how much Universal believes in the franchise, and of course it just recently had the biggest opening weekend in Universal Studios history. So I think that tells you a lot about the longevity of the franchise, and much of it has to be credited to Justin Lin, who started out directing the third movie, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. He's been able to bring all the old characters back together and try to bring more substance to the storylines that they try to come up with. Even if they're not the greatest, he still shows that he can make the scale bigger and larger and bring it to new levels internationally in ways that unfortunately Rob Cohen and John Singleton had not been able to achieve with the first and second movie. Action scenes beyond just the car racing are also very impressive. You have this really intense catfight between Michelle Rodriguez and former MMA star Gina Carano, and it takes place in the London Underground, where they're basically kicking the living hell out of each other. And I mean, I don't think I've seen a female on female action scene like that since Total Recall, the original. And I think that just goes to show you also that it's not just about cars, but it's about some pretty intense hand-to-hand combat fights. What can you say about the cars? They are what they are. They got a lot of BMWs in this movie. We have the Lucara cars that were specifically designed for the film, and the typical, you know, Japanese, Korean imports that we all know of. Of course, they're the real stars besides the actors, because they're pretty much the ones selling the movie, not just Vin Diesel and The Rock and Paul Walker. As much as I love the stunt work, there were times where it really got absurd. Now, the last movie had its share of absurd stunts. That whole scene with the car flying out the train and Paul Walker and Vin Diesel dropping down into a river and surviving. Well, that scene that you see for this trailer where Michelle Rodriguez and Vin Diesel get flipped out of their cars and it looks like they're going to crash into each other in an airborne. Yeah, it's pretty cheesy and absurd, and when they even try to explain it afterwards, it was kind of like, I had to roll my eyes. It was just like, that's the reality that they try to create for the Fast and Furious. Check your brain out the door and just enjoy the ride for what it is. I give it 2.5 stars. I enjoyed the movie. I was entertained for 2 hours. Do I think it's the greatest movie in the world? Absolutely not. I don't think it's any far different from the previous movies. It is what it is. It's just escapist entertainment with a very cheesy script, but it makes up for it just by having great action, attractive people, and nice cars. That's all you could really ask for with the Fast and Furious. So until next time, this is the Mother Brain, and you can check out my blogs on Coast Blog, as well as my other friends on there, especially the man himself, Mr. Coast. And you can also follow me on Twitter at MotherBrain830. So until next time, see you back here.